So Scream 6 is the follow-up to Scream 5, which was a bit of a kind of a soft reboot of the Scream franchise. Scream originally had 4 films, starting with Wes Craven, Scream 1, 2, and 3. And this comes from former Scream directors and directors of Ready or Not, horror pair, Matt Bertinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillett. These two put together this movie. It stars our Carpenter sisters from Scream 5, played by Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega, as they travel to New York, all right, out of a small town into the big city, when one fateful night they get a call from Ghostface, and it's somebody who's playing Ghostface, and they got to figure out who it is and survive the night, hopefully with their friends in tow, and a couple of notable cameos from former Scream stars Courteney Cox and Hayden Panettiere, to ultimately discover who this Ghostface is and put an end to their ill-gotten means before everybody dies, right? It's Scream. Like, and I told Andy before we got started, I said, God, I almost don't know how to summarize this because it's kind of too simple, but I want to give it air. The movie is Scream 6. Andy, what'd you think?
Well, I wanted to start off by saying we really liked Scream 5, like a lot more than I thought it was going to be. It was a good revival of the franchise. You got new characters. There were some good scares, some good kills. Everyone got excited about it. This has been kind of a big letdown. There is just it has a ton of problems. Story, plot, characters, too many characters. Just lots of issues that we'll get into. I don't just want to rant on it just now, but I was pretty disappointed, and I had been pretty excited for this to kind of see this in a new setting and kind of renewed interest in the Scream franchise. But I was a little disappointed. But it's done very well financially. It's made about $130 million on a budget of $30 million, so it's a huge hit. So we're definitely going to get 5 more of these movies.
Don't sound so cynical. All right. From what we've read, people seem to generally like this movie. It's got a certified fresh score of 77%. Audience score gave it a 92 on Rotten. All right. Every Reddit thread I've looked at, people like Scream 6. every Twitter thread I've seen, people seem to like Scream 6. And I think maybe Andy and I were looking forward to something that's just a little bit not the shape of what this movie is. Scream 5 had a really interesting task in front of it, right? Like coming off of Scream 4, which was Wes Craven's final film, it had to find a new voice for the series in a new director and a new creative lead. It had to try to bring back, the excitement of Ghostface, who's ultimately a pretty simple slasher. And you have to tackle like the new meta of horror movies. Like that's what Scream 1 was all about. It was about like making an anti-slasher kind of slasher movie that plays on the rules and has a character who talks on the phone about the rules of horror movies, right? And like that's difficult to do. And like in a funny way, Scream 5 surprised us because it so finely threads that needle and comes out as like a clever answer to the question, how do you reboot Scream? And it actually works really well, and it's got a pretty good cast, and the script's a little silly, but ultimately, like, it gets over some exciting moments. Scream 5's good. And Scream 6 is not that movie. Scream 6 is much more traditional, like, Scream slasher, because it no longer has to tackle this question of, like, how do you reboot the Scream series? It's just running in the direction that it thinks will like best. And Andy and I got left out in the cold on this one. At least I did. Like, it just did not go the way I thought it was going to go, which was a bummer. And I think it hurts it really bad for me, who's not traditionally a Scream fan.
Yeah, where should we kind of take off on this?
So let's start with our setting. I think that's the best way to go, right? Because it's Scream in New York, baby. New York's just as much a character as everybody else. Like New York City is the place where things are happening, and Jenna Ortega's character is going to college, and Melissa Barrera's character, her older sister, has kind of come with her because she can't get over this trauma that Ghostface is a thing that happened, and in Scream 5, bit of a spoiler for Scream 5, an older movie. It had been her boyfriend all along, like, oh my God, and that was somebody really close to her, so she feels like she can't let people in. Meanwhile, the other friends from the movie have all moved in with them. Like this core four, they call themselves, have all just come over.
They're all going to college together.
That's right. They're all going to college together. Just transpose them into this movie. Great. And one night, they get a call, and it's Ghostface. And there's a story on the news that a young woman's been brutally murdered in an alley, and it looks like there was a Ghostface mask. And so our core four have to obviously, follow the procedure, go to the police, file a report, meet an interesting FBI agent played by Hayden Panettiere from her character from Scream 4, run into Courteney Cox, Gail Weathers, the reporter from the previous Scream movies. And then slowly start to try to eliminate who it might be, a bit of a whodunit that all of the Scream movies like to embrace. And I think for a plot that's probably good enough to get you guys down the road without getting into spoiler territory. It just is not like, I don't know. It felt too samey to me. It felt too normal to me. And it's exactly what you see in the trailers. I didn't feel at all it didn't do anything clever. Right. And I don't know if you got that impression. It was just kind of bland to me.
Yeah, it's never scary at any point. You're never scared for anyone. It's not thrilling. They're supposed to. There's this kind of bit in the trailer where they're trying to crawl between apartments on the shaky ladder, and it's just when you get to that scene, it's just not thrilling. You you don't care. You're not invested in these characters enough, and part of the reason is that all of New York is in this movie. There's 13 people on the poster for this, and part of that is to keep you guessing on who's the big bad guy. But it's just there's too many people, and you don't really care about them, and the plot is all over the place. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense once the truths are revealed and things. The lead up to him just is nonsensical. And it's like they kind of thought of some interesting scenarios or some things that might be fun or scary, and then just tried to put them together, and it doesn't really work. There's this whole thing about a ghost face shrine, which we've seen in the trailer, and it's just it's so bizarre. The first one, or the previous one, the fifth Scream 5 felt a little more grounded, at least, because it was in a town, and people were getting killed in normal places, but it's just all over the place. And it's starting to feel a little bit like Star Wars, where it's it's leaning heavily on the nostalgia and the recognition of older versions of the series, because people were like, oh, I remember that from Scream 2, or I remember that from the original Scream.
Yeah, that's something I heard a lot, from Scream fans, that this movie does do a lot of clever nods to Scream 2. Structurally, there's a lot of something to do with the number of kills, and a couple of the kills are directly referencing Scream 2, and there's certain plot elements that I didn't notice in the theater that apparently have really jumped out to Scream fans, and so that's worth mentioning. If you're a Scream fan, maybe you get more out of this than we did. But it also, I think, suffers the same problem as Scream 2 structurally, in that it just feels like a generic slasher movie. In an effort to try to be meta, Scream 2 overstepped the line, and kind of fell back on itself. But this movie, goes the opposite way. It takes what Scream 5 did and shakes off all of that trappings of, how do we start over Scream with an entirely new cast of characters, which was genuinely, pretty interesting in the first one, and just says, nope, we're locking down every single little thing that kind of worked, and we're running straight forward with it, and it's going to be cool because you're going to like that your favorites are here. And that obviously does not work great with the lack of somebody like Sidney Prescott, right, and Neve Campbell, who has not come back for this movie because she said the pay sucked. Good for her. But I think like that was probably the better choice structurally. Like I don't need to see old Scream characters anymore, and I don't need to see Scream characters telling me about things that happen in other Scream movies. It feels so procedural, and this movie like has that is that to a T. Like it's just everything you think would happen naturally is what happens. Oh, we got a call from the killer. We better go to the police. For some reason the police can't help us. Great. Well, we better head back to the apartment. Oh no, something's happening at the apartment. Like, well, we better do this, dude. Like, it turns into this like paint by numbers schlock that I feel like would have had like Wes Craven rolling it over in his freaking grave. Like, and maybe that's a misread, right? Like, I'm not the most diehard Scream franchise like lover, but this one just felt like a misstep, and it's surprising to see so many people say it's not, that it's really something else. I feel like I'm missing the mark.
Right. One of the things that made the original Scream so special is that you really didn't know who was going to die at any point, because, you know, the big thing, they kill off Drew Barrymore in the opening scene, and she's like on the poster. She's a big part of the marketing. Like, people had no idea. You know, we thought you even thought maybe she's going to be the final girl.
She'll come back.
And and then other people sometimes like kind of randomly almost get killed in that movie. And in this, you got your main characters, and there's so much plot armor. There's so many stabbings that happen in this. So many people get stabbed multiple times, and it's like they just shrug it off. It's like, ow, oh man, that sucks. And it's like they're fine the next scene. And it was like, you know, Mason Gooding's character, he plays, I can't remember his name.
Chad Meeks Martin.
Chad. Yeah, Chad. Of course, he gets, you know, in Scream 5, he gets stabbed up a bunch, doesn't die. And it was like, you would be probably disabled or like chronically in pain or ill your whole life.
You would never walk
after
again. And you would have an opioid addiction.
Yeah, and he's fine in this movie. And then again, lots of stabbings, and everyone just kind of shrugs it off. And there's way too many people in this, and it's not clever. It's not interesting. It's just kind of it like checks the get your bingo card and play Screambo and just try to fill out. Oh, there's Ghostface. Oh, he stabbed someone, and it's just. And the other thing, the setting. So we talked about that. It's in New York. It could be anywhere. There's nothing New York about this other than outside of the subway. There's nothing like it could have taken place in Dallas on the light rail. Like, there's nothing significant about it. They don't go to any like landmarks. They're not in Central Park. They don't have a chase at the Empire State Building or anything like that. Nothing that makes setting it in New York anything special.
Yeah, those are two like really big places this movie misses. Like, number one, it is a terrible New York film. It is not at all good at representing New York. The whole thing was shot in Canada, like, which is fine, but like you can't put New York on the poster and do the I Heart NY stuff and like really step on Ghostface in the city and then it be a terrible New York movie. Like, just a tremendous miss. But more importantly, like, and I think one of the things that really hurts this movie, I personally, the kills are lame. Like, a lot of the kills are lame in Scream 6. Like, they're graphic, sure, and there are a couple sequences. One infamously in one of the teasers where Ghostface has a shotgun in a convenience store. That in like one other bit are like pretty good, but otherwise, a lot of them are really inconsequential. I was trying to count and think how many kills are in this movie, and there's actually, I went back and looked, there's usually more than the other Scream movies. It's high on the list. I don't think it has the most, but it's
there's
like
lots of stabs, but not finishing the job. Yeah,
and then additionally, a lot of those kills are totally inconsequential to the plot. It's like if Ghostface hopped in a Hummer and ran down 8 people in the opening minutes, and then it was like, all right, now here's the rest of the movie. Like, yeah, it gets over because it's a big number, but they don't affect the plot enough to matter, and it just leaves you feeling kind of tasteless. Like, to me, a tasteless experience.
Yeah, like you said, no one knew who was gonna die in the first one. Maybe they do that in the second. I don't remember like 2 and 3, but there seems like to be a whole lot of plot armor, and nothing's really super consequential. No one that you really know, and again, there's too many. There's way too many people in this movie. Oh my gosh. And again, that's part to throw you off, but you don't care about any of these characters. You're not really scared. And then sometimes you're just in scenarios out of nowhere Like Ghostface just kind of conveniently pops up, and it's a lot of times you're like, well, how did he get there, and how did he know where they would be? Like, there's a whole lot of that. I thought this was going to be like Ghostface terrorizing New York, like the Carpenter sisters weren't going to be the main, whatever targets here. But of course, it seems to always be about them, at least this franchise, and yeah, it's just kind of all over the place. I'm trying my best not to spoil it.
I know. Like it's a funny thing. Like ultimately, I think there are things in Scream 6 that work, right? Like there are a few cool set pieces. Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega are both great. I told Andy after we watched this, I'm like, God, the greatest thing the Scream producers did is not kill off Jenna Ortega's character in Scream 5 before she blew up, because now she's in X and she's in Wednesday and people love her. she's the greatest pick for this series. Like they should hang on to her for as long as they can. Like it's there's a couple decent kills. Like it's not that bad. I think if you're a Scream fan, you'll probably be much warmer on it than we are. But like I don't know, man. I really thought this movie was going to be just a bit more clever than it was, and I was surprised at how unclever it intentionally is, with the guise of, oh, we're being cute and we're being funny about the Scream franchise, and it's just a total miss in my opinion. Yeah, any thoughts or recommendations? I don't know.
Well, it reminds me of things like if you're a fan of like all 6 or 7 Freddy Krueger movies, or all the Jason movies, or all the Hellraiser movies. It's like, if you're that kind of devoted fan to the property, you're probably going to enjoy it. But if you're not, it's going to be, it's kind of tough. It's incoherent, so much of it. Yeah.
Any other thoughts for recommendations?
I think I'm ready.
Andy, would you recommend Scream 6?
I would say hard pass, unless you're a big Scream fan. If you've seen all of them, you watch them multiple times, you want to see how the story keeps going, you're probably interested in it. But if you're not, it's not scary. It's not thrilling. It's not interesting. It seems like everyone's got plot armor. A lot of it's kind of predictable, or just so kind of crazily twisted that it doesn't make any sense at the same time. Someone described this as Scooby-Doo, which really made me laugh. But I would say pass.
Yeah, same pass. Andy's totally right. You do get the mystery gang like from Scooby-Doo kind of feeling, especially with this like core 4 they've kind of got built up here. But like clever homages and like cutesy runarounds for actual slashers is not a good movie makes. Like it just does not add up to more than the sum of its parts. It's really simple. I do not think this movie, despite I forget who said it. One of these reviewers said it's a total Scream. It's not. It's it's a total swing and a miss.
Not at all.
Scream 6. It's fine. That's my answer. And hey, if you're a Scream fan and we totally missed the mark on this, like please write in, mail at oscarfilmreview.com, comment on this video wherever you see it, whatever, write a review on iTunes. Just throw 5 stars on it and let us know like if this movie is totally better and we missed the mark. Because like I really just I don't know. I feel like I've become embittered in my cold opinion like on this movie by everybody else's ice cold reviews. So I don't know. I don't know about Scream 6, but what I do know about is the death of cinema, which we need to talk about. This week we're doing a bit of a half and half. All right, like normally like older listeners of the show will know we either do the death of cinema in the middle of things or we do the trailer park. We're talking about trailer stuff. But this week we're doing a little both because we only have one trailer and we have kind of a small story, and we thought, why not? We'll change it up. So Andy, you want to tell people what we're getting into here?